Have you ever felt the guilt of sitting in a car and hearing knocking on your window to see a child peering in, asking for money or trying to sell you something? Well, I have been there, and the reason I felt so guilty in that situation was because I came face to face with someone who had a harder life than me. In that moment, there were two entirely different worlds, separated by a pane of glass. I'm going to tell you about a serious problem in our country. A problem so ingrained into our society that we may even see it as normal. So it's time for us to open our eyes and see the true nature of this problem. This is the Punline Golf Estate, a beautifully landscaped oasis with luxury estate villas, an exclusive golf course, a country club, a hotel, an international school, and hospital, away from the hustle and bustle of Yangon City. At first glance, this looks wonderful. But after zooming out, it shows a completely different picture. Clinging to the outskirts of this luxurious compound is a sprawling slum where more than 30,000 people live in squalor, under thatched roofs, amid open sewage and widespread disease. It's a truly dystopian scene. On one side of the fence, a wealthy few bathe in pools, relax in spas, and have access to some of the country's best facilities. While on the other side of this very fence, thousands of people live without access to running water, toilets, or clinics. It's heaven and hell side by side. And after seeing all of this, I hope you're able to see the problem that we've been overlooking. And that problem is social inequality. Social inequality is when there is an unequal distribution of not only wealth, but also the overall quality of life within a society. And in simple terms, it's like when one kid gets 3/4 of a cake while another kid only gets 1/4. In fact, the kid with the smaller slice is expected to share with 10 other kids. And this analogy contains the same principle that is behind social inequality. It is the unequal distribution of resources and quality of life. And prolonged social inequality leads to poverty. Like we saw in Punline, poverty prevents people from obtaining the same housing, the same healthcare, the same education, and the same social goods as the wealthy. So as a result, impoverished populations simply don't have the resources and the opportunities to break out of the endless cycle of poverty. And this is a prevalent problem in our country. However, the problem of social inequality is not just confined to Myanmar. In fact, the world collectively is facing a global inequality crisis. It's just that for developing countries like Myanmar, social inequality can be a serious and crippling problem due to two main reasons. The first reason being the widespread poverty that already exists in the country. Social inequality will simply push the impoverished even deeper into poverty. And the second reason being the level of risk that already exists in this country. Due to our geographic location and climate, Myanmar is vulnerable to natural hazards like cyclones, flooding, earthquakes, landslides, and fire. In more recent times, we have had to deal with severe monsoon flooding, infectious diseases, and political instability. And this combination of inequality and risk is the very formula for poverty itself. And the reason poverty is so widespread in our country is because we have experienced chronic inequality and risk. And now, with over a year of a pandemic and recent political turmoil, it is most likely that poverty in Myanmar has been exacerbated, pushing millions into unimaginable conditions. In 2017, a quarter of Myanmar's population lived below the national poverty line. And now, after the pandemic, it is estimated that around 2/3 of the country's population live on less than $1.9 a day. $1.9 a day is the international poverty line for extreme poverty. And 2/3 of the population in Myanmar live under $1.9 a day. Let that truly sink in. 2/3 of the population living in extreme poverty. This shows that now is truly a critical time to take action. And I encourage you to open your eyes to the inequality that millions of people in this country face. And if you want to help solve bigger problems like poverty, we have to tackle inequalities and risk first. And the issue of inequality is not just a problem for the government. It's a problem for all of us. And the ambivalence and inaction of people, especially from privileged backgrounds, does more harm than good for the problem of social inequality. I recognize that I myself come from a background of privilege, but I lived most of my life unaware of how privileged I was. But through my experiences doing community service over the years, I started to see the reality. And I believe that other youth from similar backgrounds as me should also recognize the privilege that they have and to open their eyes to the reality of the situation. Coming from backgrounds of privilege, we have the resources to help those disadvantaged by social inequality. These are other human beings we are talking about, living in the same society but not given the same chances. We should care about this issue because we play a critical role for the future of our country. Although we may not be able to help every single person disadvantaged by social inequality, what we can do is support these people in any way we can and provide them with the tools to overcome social inequality themselves. So here comes the big question. What can we do to help? The first thing you should do is consider starting your own organization or joining an existing service group. This is the very first step to your mission. Trust me, having a group of people with the same vision as you who will support you along the way helps. As for me, I co-founded an organization called Youth Charity Organization Myanmar, or YCOM for short, in 2018 with some friends of mine. And our mission as an organization was to help improve communities and aid those in need in Myanmar through sustained connections, education, fundraising, and the involvement of youth volunteers. And since 2018, YCOM has grown to over 30 members. But before taking action, you will not only need a group of volunteers, but you will also need funds. Funds will help you carry out your projects, and these funds can be used toward helping disadvantaged populations access basic needs and social goods like healthcare or education. Your donations could help a child go to school. It could help someone get medical treatment. It could help feed a family. And how you raise your funds is totally up to you. You could do bake sales, online fundraisers, donation boxes, or charity dinners. But the end goal is that you raise enough funds to give back to your own community. The mission of your organization is up to you, but undoubtedly, one of the most valuable things you could do with your funds and resources is sharing education. Education helps people break out of the poverty cycle. Education is an extremely useful tool that can go a long way as it instills the willingness to learn throughout life in those who possess it. With this understanding, my organization, YCOM, decided to dedicate our very first project, Gateway to Success, to sharing education. And Gateway to Success had a simple goal in mind: to set students up for success through educational empowerment. And we first implemented this project back in 2018 at a monastic school in South Dagon Township. And we arrived at the school with a group of around 10 volunteers and an experienced life coach to help guide the students throughout the workshop. I remember that although it was a relatively large room, the room was packed from front to back with around 80 students, and they were all enthusiastic to participate, as this was all a new experience for them. And we recognized that as these students come from difficult backgrounds, they might have felt discouraged or lost hope about their own futures. But we also know that they must also have aspirations of their own. So we hope to change the outlook they had for their own futures by instilling in them a positive growth mindset. And throughout the 4 days of our free behavior change workshop, we had motivational activities that aligned with our mission. And seeing the smiles of the students in the positive environment that we had created was what made it such a rewarding experience. It's safe to say our first project was a smashing success. And in the very next year, to mark our 1-year anniversary as an organization, we hosted a free Gateway to Success seminar, and around 400 students from public schools all across Yangon attended. And this event was an even bigger success. But all of this would not have been possible without the volunteers from our organization who were willing to set aside their own time for the betterment of other lives. And if you want to help those in need, you will also have to be willing to dedicate your own time, energy, and talents. Your talents, in whatever it may be, will be of great use in helping your community. And dedicating your own time is the only way that you can do that. And you may even find that dedicating your time towards helping others is more rewarding than working solely for your personal gain. After YCOM, we decided to put our efforts toward donating affordable water filters to impoverished households in Dalat Township to access clean drinking water. And the reason we carried out this project was because access to clean water is a basic human right. And many communities in Dalat did not have that. The village we donated our water filters to was next to a massive landfill and was heavily polluted. Therefore, there were surely health hazards to consuming water from nearby water sources untreated. So after donating our water filters, we held a workshop at the local school where we explained how our water filters worked and the importance of water sanitation to school children and local village people that attended. So going back to the big picture of social inequality, especially in these difficult times, we must uplift and support our country's disadvantaged populations in any way we can. And your help always counts, no matter what socioeconomic background you come from. So with that, I would like to impart you with the message that although you can't choose whether you come from privilege, you can choose how you use that privilege. Social inequality may be a challenging ingrained problem to deal with, but with collective effort, it can be overcome. The current state of things should be a powerful reminder about how flawed our systems are and how there needs to be a change sooner or later. But just remember that change starts with you. Thank you.